All right, so we are live. We are recording, everybody. So no foul language. My name is Rob Romanowski. I am the Director of Sales Operations for 3HTI. Glad you could join us today. Leading the webinar, the demo today on Creo 9 is Paul Dye. Paul is very excited about this. He's very excited about Creo 9. I'm excited about Creo 9, and it's really cool to see, what the new capabilities are in this software. So, if you have any questions. Just type them into the question and answer box or in the chat. We'll try to answer them as we go along. We'll definitely get all questions answered at the end. And if you stump us and we don't have an answer, we'll shoot you an email with the answer, because sometimes we want to be we get a question and we're like 95% sure. We like to be 100% sure. So with that, I'm going to let Paul take control and take us through what's going on in Creo 9. Oh, by the way, this is going to be about 30 minutes for this webinar. Usually we try to get everybody in and out in about 20. This might be about 30 to 35 because there's a little more to cover. So thanks for being on. And Paul, take it away, my friend.
All right. And you can hear me okay?
Yeah, hear you real good.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you very much, Rob, for having me on. I am very excited to talk through a new release of Creo. PTC has a huge investment in CAD and Creo specifically. So lots of different areas that we're improving on every single year, lots of different areas that we keep adding to, making new functionality, making things better, making them easier for everybody to work with. And so there might be areas of the presentation that you don't care about at all. There might be some areas that you really care about, but really hoping to cover something for everybody. So looking at a brief agenda of what I'm going to go over, we have improvements in a lot of different areas, from usability, human factors, which is our ergonomics and mannequin studies, which you'll see a little bit of, model-based definition and detailing, generative design, simulation, even down into manufacturing with additives and subtractive. So I'll touch on all of these areas. We'll go into some demonstrations in the context of Creo, so you can actually see what a few of these different capabilities look like. And throughout this, like Rob mentioned, feel free to drop in any questions. Obviously, tons of new material to go over, so we might not have the answer to everything, but we can definitely get anything answered for you. So with that said, we can go ahead and dive into it. First area that we're going to touch on is usability and productivity, really things that are geared around just the base, normal, everyday design. And starting here first with divide and unify surfaces. This is a new capability to say, take this given surface, but I want to deal with just a piece of it. This is useful in many different areas, things like manufacturing information, model-based definition, defining something in a given area, even into things like simulation or generative. Maybe you want to apply a load on a specific area, but not the entire surface. Well, now you can do that. You can divide a surface if you want to designate that area for a particular function. And like you see, you can also unify. So you can work with the divided surfaces, get to wherever you need to get to, and then finally you can put them back together. So that's a new capability inside of Creo Parametric that you're going to be able to work with. Some new changes to the design intent management, mostly in the model tree. You really have kind of an evolution tree for things like bodies or quilts, see what different steps were taken to create that surface, what features went into it. You have a design items tree that you're working with, things like custom groups where you can do some grouping of your own items, almost make the model tree in the way that you want to for more complex models. And even for more basic ones, you have clear access to filters, columns. There's now a toolbar for all of that. It's all about making that model tree and the design tree workflows work a lot better for you and really build them out in the way that you'd like to. So it made that a lot easier to use. And here, improvements in the sketcher. The biggest one probably being the auto scale for the first sketch that you're starting with. So if you're at the very first sketch for starting a new part, you draw something out, you make some changes. Maybe you want to change the height of a rectangle. Well, it's able to scale the whole piece based on what you change for that first sketch. So really get it to wherever you want. You don't have large numbers floating all over the place. So I'm left over. You don't have to track down missing dimensions because you scaled it all wrong. So really nice improvement there, making your workflow a little bit easier. Also have some nice inspection improvements, being able to look at what's wrong with the sketch, look for open ends, highlight overlaps. Those can now be persistent throughout the sketching. Several different improvements there just to make sure that your sketches are all coming out the way that you want them to. We added the ability for curve from point functions. You can basically define a point, give it a direction, and now we allow you to build a curve directly off of that. Made some improvements here in patterns. We have a lot more flexibility and especially speed. So really speed up things like identical pattern groups. These can be done much faster, easier to define them, easier to adjust them when you need to regenerate. You can see there, you're going from maybe before in Creo 7 or 8, where it would have taken 48 seconds. We have it down to 2 seconds now. So really making that fast is going to be very helpful if you work with these types of patterns. Some different improvements in the surfacing world. You have better control over the curve definition, specifically curvature and acceleration control points. You can now grab them, see them, makes it easier to get those curves exactly the way that you want. You can also smooth and simplify curves now. We have this new brush capability within the freestyle tool for really sculpting that organic shape. And in that freestyle tool as well, you also have the ability to mirror shapes. So a lot of additions in that area. If you do any type of freeform surface modeling, if you want to get more of that ergonomic or lifelike curves, you can definitely build this out a lot better now.
It's a really freaky looking image too.
Yeah, I hope you guys aren't designing anything like that. No, just kidding. But yeah, definitely some not very parametric, but very lifelike shapes you can build out there.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, a little creepy, but definitely effective.
But that's the compliment to how good it is.
That's true. Yeah, you can get them looking a little bit too lifelike now. Yeah, so looking back on more of the parametric or electronic side of things, we have improvements over in ECAD support. We now have the ability to import screen layer and solder masks, so you can have them come in and work in the context of your mechanical designs based on that. Those are data coming in from EDA files. Some different improvements in assemblies. You can replace a component within an assembly and pull in that assembly, retrieve missing components. That got to rework. It's now a lot easier to go in, find those parts, clean them up. You can find component session IDs in the model tree. You can group exploded offset lines, also improve dealing with circular references. This is a big one. So now that's just a single button that you have inside of your notification center to go in, identify those circular references, explore them, track them down, and ultimately get them fixed a lot easier. So make that whole process of tracking those a lot more straightforward. All right, so that covers really everything I want to touch on around the really general usability enhancements. That's something that with every single release of Creo, you're going to see those type of additions to Creo, really just making your general designers everyday use a lot easier. And if you have any questions on that, again, feel free to drop those in. But now we're going to go through and touch on some of the improvements that we have in human factors. So this is, again, working with mannequin models within your assemblies, looking at things like ergonomics, how well can a model sit within a design, how well can it reach, what can it see. So this is something that's been in Creo for a while now, and now we're starting to build this out for a few different areas. One big thing, and we're going to go ahead and show what this looks like in Creo, but we have a new mannequin editor. There's a new custom mannequin that you can take, change, resize, whatever specific design needs that you have. And once you do that, you can then save them off. You can save as many different mannequins of your own size and shape. And after that, go ahead and use them inside of your assembly, just as you would with any other mannequin. So really nice addition there.
I see you put the one mannequin on a diet from the one frame to the other.
New Creo, new me.
Healthy living.
Yeah, so, but I mean, if you want to make sure that you can still ride your bike if you get off of your diet for a little bit, probably a good area to check out now with the mannequin.
Well, the other thing is like, just coming to think about it, like you might have a product or something where you've got to test for weight.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that obviously being able to create mannequins of different sizes is key for height, weight, or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's all fine and dandy if you can build your bike to work for the 50 percentile man, 50 percentile height, everything completely normal. But then if you start to go to the other extremes of these different areas, it can get a little bit more complex and things might not work in the same ways that you would think they would.
True.
So a lot of things to take into account there. And things that you can really do to manipulate these different mannequins as well, not just working with different types, but different types of positions. And we improve the manipulation of these different mannequins, the constraints that you can put on them. You'll now see a 3D dragger that you'll see pretty much everywhere else in Creo. this is now available inside a mannequin. You're essentially picking an edge, shows you that, allows you to move things around easier. The reach functionality got an improvement. It'll basically show a missing distance. If your mannequin can't reach something, it'll show you exactly how far away it is. It shows you the exact distance. So you can see, okay, I'm pretty close with that. Maybe I need to go through and tweak some things, making it a lot easier to figure that out and go ahead and fix that mannequin. Right here also improves safety of the design. You got a visual field now that you can turn on where you're able to look at something, shows what's obstructing it, and after those obstructions, what can you still see? So you have these different visibility codes you can lay out, and ultimately you're going to get a better understanding of that field of view of your mannequin, make sure that they're able to see exactly what they need to be able to see. All right, and with that,
hey,
go ahead.
Real quick, Paul, sorry to cut you off, but I was waiting for a segue. So we have a question, and I probably missed this when it first came in. Is there anything new for patching holes in imported surfaces from other CAD tools?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. I would have to look at the release documentation. I haven't seen anything specific around that, but there may have been some additions that maybe I just didn't catch. But we could look into that definitely.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, good question. Just making sure, looking for open quilts or open surfaces within an import model. Yeah, we can look at that and see what type of changes may have been made to that. All right. So yeah, we'll check into that. And if we don't have anything else around that, we can go ahead and take a look at our demonstration here. So I just want to go through and show what some of these different capabilities look like here in the context of Creo 9. So this is all going to be around a demonstration of human factors, and also called mannequin, you might see it as. Depending on the different designs that you're working on, a lot of different considerations take into account: ergonomics, fit, reach. So something like a motorcycle is a good example of that. These things all come into play. And we want to be able to bring in these human type of models, make sure that they can see what they need to, make sure they can reach. And with Creo 9, we introduced some of these new functionalities. Biggest one probably is the ability to do custom mannequins. You have normally a huge library of standard size people, tall, short, different ethnic backgrounds. But now you can take all these and customize them. So make them however you want: taller, shorter, heavier, longer, shorter arms, whatever best fits the demographic that you're designing around. Maybe if you're building out for a specific market or you have certain limitations, you can build that all on your own now. So very easy user interface. Set the height, weight, different components, different attributes that you can use, and build these out into all of your different human factor analyses that you want to run. So set them exactly the way that you want. And once you have it built out, you can go ahead and save that off. And it's going to exist as an inseparable assembly. So it's very clean to work with inside of your other assemblies. And now it's completely customizable. So really strong feature that you have there now with Creo 9. And we can go back into our model here and add them in, make sure that he's going to fit in correctly. Just go right up into mannequin, insert it into the design, and we'll grab our custom mannequin that we were working with. And we want to place him on the bike in a seated position. So a few different references that we'll lay out. So this is where we're going to place him. What direction is he facing? Get that all laid out. Essentially just a data plane or surface for each of those. And these are some standard mannequin functionalities. Now we're going to look into a couple of the other newer ones. One of the newer ones being the new interface that we work within. Over on the left, you have the mannequin tree where you can manage the different pieces, different snapshots of this in time. So what you can do is put the mannequin in different postures, hands in different positions, and take snapshots of all that. And we really just want to make sure in this case that the reach is going to work, make sure our user can reach what they need to. And another new functionality that I mentioned in that reach feature is the ability, if your mannequin's unable to reach, it'll put the arm out as far as possible so you can see exactly how close you are and exactly what that distance is. In my case, it seems to be working pretty well. So we can use some of this new dragger functionality as well. Make it very easy to adjust the arm, make sure that it's comfortable. Go ahead and do the same thing here on the left-hand side, make sure that the reach is good. And from that point, we can manipulate the forearm with the 3D dragger to move that arm, make sure everything's working as it should. I think that's looking pretty good. So might want to do a similar thing down here on the feet. And the way that this works is we're just aligning different points in the model with points in the mannequin. That's fundamentally how that reach feature works, whether it's for the hands or the feet. Go ahead and do the same thing down here on the other side. Just make sure that those motions can be physically done. But at the same time, you're making sure that you're not going to have problems, right? Is the leg interfering with mufflers or your toes bumping into something? It's much better to figure that out here before having to go ahead and build out a full prototype in order to do that. And maybe here we notice that our model looks a little bit uncomfortable. We can make some changes if need be. Just use that from mannequin tree on the left if we want to. Use the dragger to move him around to the right positions. Just really make his riding experience as comfortable as possible. Now with Creo 9 makes these type of motions a lot easier. All right, he's looking pretty good. Anakin's good to ride, good to get on the road. You know, at any point, if you like that position he's in, you could take a snapshot of this to come back to. If you want to send this out to someone else, you can always send that over to them in that position. Last thing I want to touch on here as well is the new ability to set up different view fields. In this case here from the eyes of our mannequin. And what we want to do here is select that and look from a particular area at certain pieces of the design. And what we're able to see now is what exactly is obstructing objects within that view, see what objects are going to be in its way, very clear understanding of what that view cone is. So it's very useful, something that if we go ahead and change the model at all, the view cone will update as well. So this has all been updated with Creo 9. All right, so just a quick look through there and some really great functionality that you're going to have going forward now.
It's pretty cool. That 3D dragger is the secret sauce to flexible modeling.
Yeah, exactly. So it takes a lot of the ease of use that you have over in flex modeling and really makes sense to bring it over here into mannequin because you have a lot of kind of lifelike movements you need to do. So that 3D dragger makes that very easy.
Yeah, it can get. Yeah, you can adjust that mannequin a lot faster. That's really cool.
Yeah, a lot faster. All right, so good around that. We're going to move into some improvements that we have in model-based definition and detailing. We already mentioned that idea of the divide surface. It kind of falls into this, but also have improvements in surface finish. This is similar to what we've done in previous releases of Creo with all the different annotation notes and dimensions that we've been updating. So surface finish has gotten a rewrite. It's easier to play with, easier to edit. We've got a new gallery of surface finish symbols. So a lot of different improvements that we've made in the surface finish and how those are built out, especially when they relate to your drawings. We have the ability to do parameters with symbols. So these can be predefined. You can use them as you place a particular symbol, and then downstream consumers can see those parameters and act upon them. Weld symbol parameters are also now exposed in Windchill's NPM link. So you can use those for your manufacturing process planning, and also added in default parameters for out-of-the-box weld surface finish symbols. So you automatically get some automatic parameters, and you can go through and add your own in there as well. All right, moving on to GD&T Advisor, discuss some different improvements, better support for detailing standards with the new Details tab, on-demand creation of different missing components. So with this, you no longer have to stop. You don't have to get out of GD&T Advisor to go back, create a dimension, come back into the advisor to use it. Now you can just do it right on the fly. So that's a huge usability improvement there. And cross-highlighting of annotations between your main graphics area and the GD&T Advisor tree on the left. So it's really easy. Just click on one feature in the tree. You see it highlighted in the visual area on the right. So very easy to track them down, work with those different annotations. And some nice improvements here in hatching for making these drawings. So really cleaned up the workflow for creating and editing hatch patterns, much easier to do now. It's easier to access and favorite different hatch patterns. So you can really customize that to your heart's content, very quickly go through and work with ones that you want to use on a day-to-day basis. All right, so that covers everything that I want to touch around these, but I'm wanting to move now into some areas of really work that we've been doing over the past couple releases of Creo around generative design and simulation. So we're going to start here with, first and foremost, Creo Simulation Live. What we have now is support for multi-physics. So you can have now thermal and stress loads all in one particular study. And this also now has support for formula or gyroid-based lattices. So those can now be included in your simulations. If you have a gyroid-based lattice inside your part, those can now be taken care of in Simulation Live. Those lattices really have a lot of different uses in additive manufacturing. So a lot of different improvements that we've seen over in that area now could be looked at and analyzed here with Creo Simulation Live. A lot of work over with Creo ANSYS simulation. We can now create things like mid-surface geometry, support for bearing loads, things like inertia relief. These have been added in. And then also things like copying and pasting loads or constraints. So with that, you don't have to reproduce them by typing them in every single time. You can just do a copy paste, move them from one study, move them over to another. So a few different nice improvements there with Creo
That'd save
ANSYS.
some time.
Definitely save some time. You don't have to go through and lay them out, especially if you're working with lots of different studies, which we know a lot of people do. Creo flow analysis is an area that got a number of different improvements. You can now store multiple different CFD projects in one model. You don't have to store them out separately. You can look at the various ones, hop from one to the other if you'd like to. We worked on the meshing with some different tessellation improvements, support for lattice geometry again. This is the idea of using lattices for things like heat exchangers and so forth. Those can now all be studied and used in Creo flow analysis. Also, behavior modeling integration. This is a Creo parametric modeling tool that we've had, and we use this for automatically solving certain parameters of the model for a given goal. And this now works in flow analysis as well. So for example, if I wanted to solve for a particular exit velocity based on these 3 or 4 parameters, we just let the system go run, find it, see what affects it, and see if we can do an optimization to solve for a given goal. And we can do that all within flow analysis. And I'll actually show a demonstration of that here in just a minute. And generative design here also got some improvements. We have now the concept of a safety factor to minimize mass at that specified safety factor. You can also now do modal analysis, so maximize a fundamental frequency for a mass volume target, minimize mass for some frequency floor. Around that, we also added in support for ball joint constraints, and now running an initial simulation. You can do this before you start into a generative optimization. Essentially do this like a sanity check, just make sure that your loads and constraints all look right, and then do your generative run. Allows you to avoid spending time on the wrong things, really put the focus back on doing just what you want in generative. All right, so now again, I'm going to touch on a demonstration of one of these. I'm going to focus in a little bit onto our flow analysis and see some of the integration that this has here with behavior modeling. We'll go ahead and switch over to that now. And just go ahead and open up the model that we're going to be working with here. So in this case here, we're looking at the front of our design, got the windscreen, got the dash, got the beak down there at the bottom. And I have a base study set up with a few initial conditions. And if you haven't seen this tool before, we're essentially able to do these sort of flow studies from right within Creo to look at many types of fluid simulations. In this case here, we're looking at an external flow. You can see it's very easy to work with, very easy to see and visualize the results from the study. It's very easy to change these things around with the pop-up toolbars that get just about everything that you need right in front of you without having to track down various menus. You can see here in the front of the flow, it's entering in at 60 miles per hour. You have certain pressures in the design, and you can see the results that we're getting from that. All in all, pretty good, but say you want to improve upon that, get better results in some way, or even see if this design is something that can get me the minimums that I need, we can go ahead and work with this a bit. So in this case, what I'll do is add that velocity to a behavior modeling study. So this becomes an input parameter that I can use along with some other variables like pressure and the X, whatever we really need. First thing that we'll do in behavior modeling is a sensitivity study. So if I vary a parameter or value, what types of results do we get? In this case, in pressure values. So this is a lot faster than us iterating through values to see what we get. We can just let the system go ahead, compute that, and see what type of results we get to. You see it all gets plotted out there, the variables or values that you probably need to be working around. It's all very visually displayed there. And once you have an understanding of that, we can then take what we got there and move into an optimization. So this is another study that you could use to get the most out of our models and get them really optimized. This is some normal Creo functionality we've worked with for a while, but now we can make direct use of that here in our flow study. In this case, we could set the pressure based on certain values. So that'll be my design constraint. And what can I vary? Well, we can allow that velocity to change. And what's great about this is the fact that we could run multiple different parameters or constraints, 4 different variables, and just let the system run there. And if the constraints that we're looking to get to are actually impossible, the system's going to let us know that. And that's way better than us having to fumble around for a day just to try to ultimately figure that out. Right, and now what we're doing is we're letting that run through, see what the value converges onto for our optimal result based on how many iterations that we give the system to run through. And once the system converges, we're able to see what that value is there and go back and see what the new results are. So really getting towards a more optimized model at the end of the day. So really doing this sort of refinement work through these different flow studies, not only getting to a design or a study that just simply works as kind of a pass or a fail, but really getting to a much more refined and efficient model at the end of the day. So this is all looking pretty good. We have a new inlet velocity, and that's something that we can take with and work from going forward. All right, that looks pretty good. So good to move on. So again, a lot of different areas that we've worked with and built out there in our fluid simulation, and really, really strong tool for a lot of people that are working in this area. Okay, moving on from here. Lastly, we're going to be going over some manufacturing areas, specifically around additive and subtractive manufacturing. And we'll start here with the additive world. We added support for open quilts on stochastic lattices. You can make things like skin lattices, a lot of different interesting geometry. You have automatic redirect of fluid flows. That's again, getting back into that flow analysis using lattices for things like heat exchangers. You can do a variable wall offset for formula-based lattices. And that's something that in the scope of additive manufacturing is a type of lattice that doesn't require the use of any type of support structure. So that's very useful. And what you can also do now is mix user-defined and materialized style support structures within a given model. Materialized is our metal-based printing processes, so you can now mix that with your user-defined parameters as well. Several different improvements in high-speed machining, better surface finish and flexibility with the new geodesic 5-axis finishing toolpath. This is something that I'll show what looks like in the context of Creo. Really helps to improve things like tool life, avoids chatter, faster overall machining, and much faster overall NC programming time as well. From there, we also have fully associative in-process stock models in the model tree. So you can turn those off or on. They're fully associative at any time. So those can be easily updated. So a lot of nice improvements there with stock models in the sense of high-speed machining and improvements in machining enhancements in general. A lot of small things, flexibility with particular NC toolpaths, getting rid of the limitation of only using the predefined CL commands. You can now define your own, many different CL commands as you want. You can add those all in, add them into your toolpaths. So really whatever your post-processor needs might be. And then finally, we added in cutter compensation support. So this is within profile passes and high-speed machining roughing. This was a customer request that we got a couple of times to get cutter compensation in there. So that's also very nice to have included as well. All right, and so to wrap up, we'll go ahead and take a look at a demonstration of this so we can see what some of these new improvements look like here in the context of Creo.
By the way, regarding additive manufacturing, I just want everyone to know we have just signed are in the process of signing an agreement with Desktop Metal, which is very exciting. We have been an EnvisionTech reseller for years, and EnvisionTech printers, or with digital light processing, have a very high detailed output of their parts and prints. They're fantastic. They also do bioprinters and they do sandcasting. Have a sandcasting printer for it's good for foundries. But to be able to work with Desktop Metal and expand that line to metal 3D printers, I think it's something that's going to be tremendous for our customers, not just for prototypes, but for end-use parts as well. And that's where this additive manufacturing extension is going to come in and really, help some of our customers who have that specific need, help them make end-use parts, help them with prototypes and everything. So a lot of exciting stuff happening for PTC and 3HTI this time of year. So thanks, Paul. I appreciate you letting me talk.
No, absolutely. And you bring up a really good point there too, that you really see the distinction between what you would think of as standard rapid prototyping or 3D printing and what you see as additive manufacturing. So not just looking to use 3D printing or additive as a way to test out a model, but actually using it for full production. You see more and more companies starting to do that and really being a very viable and actually a lot of times the best option in a lot of cases. So
A
you see a
lot
lot
more
more people doing
efficient.
that.
It's a lot more efficient as far as not wasting a lot of material, reducing costs, as well as creating a more efficient design that you can't make using traditional manufacturing.
Yeah, there are some designs that just physically can't be manufactured, even like what we're seeing here with your NC programming. You can make a lot of great designs and have a lot of improvements around NC, but there are still some things at the end of the day that can't be created with a cast or a milling machine. So a lot of different things they have to take into account, and really, again, a lot of strong capabilities that we have in Creo for specifically designing around that. Awesome. Yeah, so again, just one last demonstration we'll take us through here to see what some of the different machining improvements that we made here are. More specifically, we'll go ahead and dive in here on our rear hub, get that part open. All right, so you can see that's where all the spokes are connected into. Probably gonna make a forging for most of that. And if we wanna get this into production, we're gonna go ahead and open up our machining assembly. Check that out. Here, we're going to check out a few of our tool paths. In this case, let's look at a multi-axis roughing tool path. So this is what you want in a part like this, right? You really don't want to spend a ton of time treating this like a 3-axis mill, take hours and hours to try to set that up. So you just want to machine all of that. And because it's a multi-axis tool path, it'll rotate the tool for you automatically. It gives you a very efficient tool path. And that was something that was introduced back in Creo 8, but now with Creo 9, we have a new one. Somewhat related, but this is the geodesic option. Similar sort of concept, but now we're going to pick the tool of the appropriate size, pick the outside surfaces that we want to machine, select on your things like step over, stock allowance, really a lot of different options, detail how they connect, how they link together, the tool motions. And what you end up with is a very efficient path here for our finish, where it does the same sort of thing, but we're treating it like a revolving surface. So we can see really how efficient that tool path is. You can take a look at what that looks like right on the model there. You could also switch this over to a solid model visualization. Go ahead and do that. And in this case, we'll grab the stock model and bring that in. So here we'll see the part roughed out. And now we can check out what this looks like with the finishing path done on it. What you see is a very clean finish, very good surface finish. But above all, let the system do the axis control for you. If it needs to move to clear a fixture, let it do that. If it has undercuts, let the system figure that out for you. So really, again, automating that process, let the system determine those different factors for you, so you don't have to manually go through and figure that out yourself. All right, that looks pretty good. And that's the first new capability with that geodesic finish path. Next thing that I want to show off here is working with in-process models. So now we have the capability to put stock models right into the tree on the left. So basically related to whatever toolpath you want, we can turn off that workpiece so you can see this. So that's the stock model that we get from our high-speed multi-axis roughing toolpath. It can be any toolpath you want. You can get the stock model for it, take the previous one, use that to build out your next one. And these can just sit there. They don't have to take up any calculations, but they're going to be available for you at any time you want. You can show them, hide them, use them to do your rest finishing, rest roughing. So that's an option to use those now. And they can also be updated with just a click of a button. Makes your life a lot easier throughout the process. So those are the first two new features, the in-process stock models and the geodesic finishing options. And we can take a look at one last one here. So go ahead and take a look back at our model. Let's go ahead and take the seat design here. And this is going to be a big plastic piece off of that. It's probably going to be injection molded part. So what I've done is create a mold assembly. So go ahead and get that open here. And this is actually from the tool design option for building out the cores and the cavities that you see here. So what we want to do is take these and mill them out using Creo NC. You can see I've got a high-speed roughing sequence that we have saved off here. Go ahead and rough this thing out. Go ahead and take that up here. Here we go. So we have our roughing procedure that we want to work with. And for most of these type of things, you'll see you have a feed rate step. So this is normally a constant that stays the same throughout the process, but really depending on the complexity of your part and the options that you choose, this could be a problem. So this has been a highly requested option that we've had. to do adaptive feed rate control. So all you have to do is switch a parameter, set the different values for your feed rate. You can slow it down to as much as 10% so we can see what it is right now. Right now, I'll go through checkouts through all of those different options, change them to whatever we need to do. Once we have that adaptive feed rate set, we can change the minimum maybe down from 20 to 10, but otherwise maybe run it at a full rate. So now with those two different settings, the system will recalculate with our new adaptive feed rate. And what you'll see is different feed rates depending on how much the tool is being engaged. And we really want that feed rate to be changed along with that. And while we do want the main feed rate to stay the same as much as possible, we want it to slow down as it goes in. So really preserving things like tool life and making that process a lot easier. So that's the third major improvement, adaptive feed rate for both 3 and 5 axis high-speed roughing and rust roughing. All right, that looks pretty good. So that's really everything that I wanted to cover today. So a lot of different areas, a lot of different features that we've improved upon, added in for the first time. Still always working on just the general usability things, but also into a lot of the different applications. We're really trying to make as many improvements to each area of the design process as we can with every single new release. So with that, definitely happy to take any questions that we might have, or I can pass it over to you, Rob, to add anything else.
Sure. One of the questions that came on was to see the new improvement in the freeform. I'm guessing that that's what he means is freestyle.
The freeform style modeling. Yeah, well, maybe this is something that we could look into and actually set up a follow-up webinar around too, Rob. It may be another point after this. I mean, there might be some other material that we could forward over, but it's definitely something that we could touch on at some point as well.
Okay. Sounds good. Let me see. Is the mannequin part of the basic module, or do you need to purchase an advanced package? So good question. Mannequin is a part of the base license of Creo. So the base license of Creo, which is for a locked license, is $27.80 annually. There is a lot of capability within that package. So not only do you have flexible modeling, which allows you to use that dragger and make edits, downstream edits quickly. It's kind of like, you know, working direct modeling in a parametric environment, which is similar to the whole freeform capability. Oh, look at this. This is perfect. You also have the design exploration extension, which gives you checkpoints, so you don't have to create different files for iterations of a part or a design. You can use checkpoints within the same file, so you're not opening up several different files to see a variation of your design. Piping and cabling's in there. The Render Studio extension is in there, which is I believe powered by Keyshot. Intelligent Fastener, Advanced Framework extension, and there we see Human Factors extension and Human Factors analysis. So a lot of really good stuff. The other thing that gets overlooked, there is a collaboration extension in there for Inventor and also for SOLIDWORKS. This allows you to bring in an Inventor or a SOLIDWORKS file, and not only can you view it and modify it, but you could also save that file again back as a SOLIDWORKS file or as an Inventor file. So you don't have to then go to a neutral file, because especially with SOLIDWORKS, then those of you who also use SOLIDWORKS probably know, when you convert a SOLIDWORKS file to a neutral file, you got rework to do, because you can lose up to 20% of that file. This way, you're bringing it into Creo, you lose nothing. You change it, you make modifications, and then when you save it back, you can save it back as a SOLIDWORKS file, and you don't lose anything. It's quite nice. So that answers that question. You still there, Paul?
I am.
All right, good. I thought maybe I bored everybody to tears. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Okay. I was asked if I answered the first question. I believe we did. Is there anything, was that question, is there anything new for patching holes in imported surfaces?
Yeah, that's one we're definitely gonna have to look into. I hadn't seen anything in the release, but that may just be something that I had overlooked. So definitely something we could check into and get back with anything that was updated around that.
Excellent. So real quick. Here we go. So one of the things I wanted to mention, and thanks, Paul, for pulling up the capabilities within Creo so everyone can see what's in the base package, basically. We offer 2 hours of desk side coaching. It's actually 1 hour of desk side coaching for every license of Creo that you have from 3HDI, but we give you at a minimum 2 hours of desk side coaching. Say that real fast. We want our customers to be able to use Creo in the way that they need to use it. Instead of learning, taking, you can take class. There's a great program called Creo Learn that gives a lot of great online instruction. But what we want to do is make sure that we're alongside of you and helping your people become proficient at using Creo the way they need to use Creo, the way that they think, the way that you guys need to model, so that they become proficient as quickly as possible. And that counts if you're going from Creo 7 to Creo 9 or Creo 8 to Creo 9. We're more than happy to assist you with the usage of Creo 9 to go through some tips and tricks to help you model faster and more efficiently. So with that, that's going to conclude our webinar today. And I want to thank you, Paul, for being on. I think you did a great job. This is a lot of information. I thought all the demos were great. And as I mentioned, the questions that we didn't answer, we will definitely get back to you on. And thank you. I forget what our topic is for next week offhand, but you'll be seeing an email for next week's webinar, which will be Thursday at noon. Thanks, everybody, and have a great afternoon and the rest of your week.